Big part of DEI are these so-called anti-racism trainings that are nothing but Maoist struggle sessions that are designed to change the American way of life, to change how Americans think.
You're watching Restoring America, where we shine a light on the fundamental values of this country and all the reasons why they're worth saving. This week, we're going to talk about the relentless effort by the left to undermine the fundamental values that were key to our Declaration of Independence back in 1776. I'm Kaylee McGhee White. Let's get started. This week, we celebrate the 4th of July, the national holiday commemorating the day the American colonists formally broke away from Great Britain and declared their independence. Our Declaration, written by Thomas Jefferson, clearly lays out the principles we relied upon to make our case, principles that became the foundation for our new government. Liberty, justice, equality, and a government led by and for its people. These principles are still vital to who America is and what it ought to be. However, these principles have also become targets in the left's culture war, especially over the past decade. One need look no further than the destructive diversity, equity, and inclusion mandates that the left has successfully embedded in our schools, our corporations, our government, and even our museums, as my next guest will explain. With me today is Mike Gonzalez, a senior fellow at Heritage Foundation and the author of a new book called Next Gen Marxism: What It Is and How to Combat It. Mike, thanks very much for being here today. We're talking about the very important topic of the culture war generally and how the left is seeking to undermine many of our founding principles that we celebrate this week with Independence Day. So I want to focus specifically on one of the left's efforts to do this through DEI, or diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. Because, in my opinion, there's no better agenda that so clearly demonstrates the left's goal of undermining our founding values. So can you explain how the left is using DEI mandates to accomplish this?
Yeah, right. The DEI is a prime example of leftist subterfuge because it hides behind beautiful words: diversity, equity, and inclusion. In fact, DEI, it operationalizes critical race theory, which is a Marxist construct. A big part of DEI are these so-called anti-racism trainings that are nothing but Maoist struggle sessions that are designed to change the American way of life, to change how Americans think. Now, I need to reiterate once again that diversity is a beautiful concept, but the way the left defines it, it just means racial quotas, which are unconstitutional. Equity is the worst of all of them. It sounds like equality. It's the opposite. It mandates that government and the private sector treat individual Americans differently because of their race. And inclusion, another nice sounding word, means language codes or prohibitions on what we can do or say or act. So yes, it is something that must be fought, despite the fact that the left has hidden behind these beautiful sounding words.
And you make a great point about its cultural ties to Marxism, because you've argued extensively in the Washington Examiner for us that these things actually have their roots in original Marxism. And you talk about this in your new book as well. So how can we track DEI back to Marxism?
Well, you track it directly to critical race theory, which, as I said, DEI operationalizes the concepts of critical race theory by implementing its mandates. Critical race theory is the direct descendant of critical theory, which is it's American direct descendant. Critical theory is a German body of thought that was started by Marxist intellectuals in Germany to try to revolutionize the culture, try to revolutionize not just German culture, but the entire West. And they came here, they set up at Columbia University, and they tried to, it was an unremitting attack against traditional tenets of the United States and the West. Critical race theory does all that, but in terms of race. In other words, the revolutionary agent is no longer the worker. It is the member of in the case of critical race theory, it's a member of racialized, marginalized groups. In the case of gender theory, it's sister. It's the members of the marginalized sexual groups and so on. So yes, and again, as I said, DEI has these so-called anti-racism trainings, which bring together in offices or shop floors or classrooms people to try to change how they think. They have to make self-confessions, just like they did on their Mao, and they have to promise to do better. They have to say that what they want to do is create a new American way of life.
And we know a lot about some of the bigger fronts of this culture war, like the classroom where critical race theory is present, even in the government, even in corporations. But one of the lesser talked about fronts that you've talked about a lot is the museums, the cultural institutions that are supposed to preserve and protect our history and culture. So can you talk more about how this ideological battle is raging in our museums as well?
So museums are a prime battleground for the cultural war that the left started. The left just says that with the conservatives are engaging in the culture war. Yeah, they started it, and we have to take back that ground. Museums try to, as they themselves say, decolonize the culture by present a version of America that is very different from the real version. America is a free society, still under Joe Biden. America is not institutionalized, it's not systemically racist. We do not live under an oppressive order. The museums try to portray life that way. Take the Latino Museum, for example, at the Smithsonian. It is a way to instill into Americans of Hispanic descent the idea that they should have grievances against the United States and therefore work assiduously to try to undermine the United States. I have fought against the Latino Museum. They actually stopped an exhibit that had been working on for 2 years because of the things that I have written. The two curators that were working on this new exhibit are plain and simple Marxists. They're out and out Marxists. They went on Democracy Now!, which is a Marxist television show, to decry the fact that their exhibit had been stopped. But it's not just the Latino Museum. There are exhibits now on BLM. BLM was started by Marxist women who say they're Marxists. It's not Mike Gonzalez that says they're Marxists. They're Marxists. So yes, any Republican congressman who believes that they can just ignore the Smithsonian or any other museum, that they can ignore this battle, they're whistling past the graveyard.
And every victory in the culture war is ultimately going to be rooted back to fighting it on every single front and not ignoring even the ones that people don't think matter. So thank you very much for drawing attention to this very important issue. And thanks for joining us. This has been Restoring America. I'm Kaylee McGhee White. For more political news, conservative views, and exclusive interviews, head to WashingtonExaminer.com.